Well, welcome back, folks, to the Movie NP, the vlog where I review movies and analyze them for life hacks and success tips. Tonight's movie review is going to be A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. It's probably one of the only true Thanksgiving specials out there. This was released in 1973, direct to TV. It carries a rating of G and is 25 minutes long. It carries an IMDb rating of 7.7 and a Rotten Tomatoes rating of 67%. I'd probably agree with those reviews. This is not one of the best specials out there or any of the best Charlie Brown specials, but it is unique to Thanksgiving and it is cherished by many children that were born in the 70s and the 80s. This ran yearly on broadcast TV through the 70s and the 80s. Probably it stopped running probably the mid 90s, late 90s. It is currently available on Apple TV Plus for subscribers. Apple has bought the rights to this. However, you can find it in old school DVD. For those of you who remember what DVDs are, on Amazon.com. It's directed by Bill Melendez and Philip Roman. It's written by Charles M. Schultz and stars voice actors Todd Barbie, Robin Cohen, and Stephen Shea, all of which were children at the time of the film. And this tends to be a unique aspect of the Charlie Brown specials. All of the voice actors are children. So what's the plot here, folks? Well, Peppermint Patty invites herself over to Charlie Brown's place for Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, this puts Charlie Brown at a disadvantage because he's never hosted anything and he doesn't really know what to do. So he attempts to throw together a Thanksgiving dinner, and this blows up because through the process, all of the friends are invited, which of course overwhelms Charlie Brown. So spoiler alert. So the movie starts off with Charlie Brown and his sister Sally trying to decide what they're doing for Thanksgiving. This of course also sets up the themes of gratitude and simplicity and asks the question of what does Thanksgiving really mean? Is it about tradition and perfection, or is it about kindness, friendship, and gratitude? This, of course, introduces the big problem is Charlie Brown's never hosted a Thanksgiving dinner and doesn't really know what to do. So, of course, hilarity ensues because Peppermint Patty doesn't keep this to herself. Peppermint Patty invites Marcy and the whole rest of the gang to come on over, which, of course, panics Charlie Brown even more because he has no clue what to do. Enter Linus, who tends to be the Charlie Brown's best friend and anchor in all of the Charlie Brown's specials. Linus also tends to be the voice of reason in all of these specials. So Linus reminds Charlie Brown that Thanksgiving is not about fancy meals and perfection, but Thanksgiving is about giving thanks and kindness and friendship. At this point, Snoopy and Woodstock decide to help, and this, of course, sets off some of the best scenes in the whole film. Snoopy and Woodstock then head out to the backyard to begin to pull supplies out of the garage. One of the things they pull out is an old ping pong table that they use for the dining table, and then they pull out some folding chairs, which ends up in a hilarious scene where the chairs attack Snoopy and Snoopy fights back. Once they get all the furniture set up, the next thing they do is to begin to make some food, which includes popcorn, toast, jelly beans, and pretzels. Not quite the traditional Thanksgiving meal. At this point, the guests begin to arrive and they all sit down to have their meal. Charlie Brown, having no experience hosting a party and certainly not a chef or a cook, provides his contribution as cold cereal. At this point, it becomes clear that Peppermint Patty was expecting the traditional holiday meal. And when that didn't happen, she became very upset, irate, had a behavioral outburst, and was very embarrassed over the whole ordeal. Of course, at this point, this humiliates Charlie Brown, and he feels that he has ruined all of Thanksgiving for everyone. Peppermint Patty, at this point, also realizes that the mistake that she made, and she confides in Marcy as to what to do. Marcy here becomes the voice of reason and tells Peppermint Patty that Charlie Brown was doing his best and that she's expecting way too much. At this point, Peppermint Patty apologizes to Charlie Brown and admits that she was wrong. Linus, of course, being the voice of reason, suggests since this was all a bust, why don't we all go to Charlie Brown's grandmother's for Thanksgiving? Charlie Brown then calls his grandmother, explains the whole situation, and of course, Grandma is gracious to invite everybody along. So at this point, Charlie Brown and his friends load up in the family station wagon, where all of the misgivings previously are forgotten, all is right in the world, and they head off into the sunset, all laughing and joking and having a good time. The film ends with Snoopy and Woodstock sitting down to their own Thanksgiving celebration, where the meal ends up being, what? You guessed it, the traditional Thanksgiving meal with turkey and all the trimmings. So the big question is if Snoopy and Woodstock are having their traditional Thanksgiving meal, where was this food earlier? We could have avoided a lot of conflict. But then again, we wouldn't have had the plot for the special, right? And we would have not come to the overall message of the film, which is Thanksgiving is about togetherness and gratitude, not about perfection and food. So life hack number 1 is not to focus on perfection, but doing the best that you possibly can. Charlie Brown obviously does not know how to host a party or to cook a real meal, but he does his best by providing the stuff that he does know how to make. Cold cereal. So the bigger picture here is we need to focus on our intentions and the intentions of others, not the ideals of perfection. And here's a quote from Teddy Roosevelt, which states, "Do what you can with what you have where you are." Life hack number 2 is that true friends accept you for who you are. Charlie Brown obviously doesn't know what to do, but he tries his best. And ultimately, at the end of the show, all of his friends accept him because they realize that A, he did do his best and that he was sincere in what he was trying to do. So the key here is to surround yourself with people that value your authenticity and value you for who you are. So in my life, I've found that these fake friends tend to fall off as you continue on your path to success. Sometimes they try to hold you back, but you have to keep on pushing forward. Ultimately, what you end up with is a group of people that truly love you and support you. As the saying goes, surround yourself with 4 millionaires and you'll soon become the 5th one. And here's a quote by Oscar Wilde. Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Life hack number 3 is that gratitude is a transforming force. Similar to what occurs in Charlie Brown's Christmas, Linus is the voice of reason that refocuses everybody's attention on what is truly meaningful. By doing so, Linus gives the prayer at Thanksgiving that reminds everybody that Thanksgiving is not about abundance and perfection, but about gratitude, kindness, and giving thanks. So the key point here is that we should start out every day with finding one thing that we are grateful for. It's also very helpful to keep a gratitude list or a gratitude log, which allows you to look back to remind you of what's important and what you're thankful for. What gratitude does is it rewires our brains to looking at things from the point of view of scarcity to looking at things from the point of view of abundance. And here's a quote here from Melody Beattie that states, "Gratitude turns what we have into enough." Life hack number 4 is that leadership is about doing the right thing even when it's hard. We see Charlie Brown do this in the film. Obviously, he's overwhelmed, but he does his best at hosting a party and providing a meal for his friends. A true leader acts from values and not from popularity. A true leader is a servant leader that gives his people the tools that they need to be successful. And through their success, they ultimately lead to the leader's success. And here's a quote by C.S. Lewis that states, "Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching." Life hack number 5 is it is often necessary to ask for help. Charlie Brown realizes that he's overwhelmed, that he's not done this before, he has no experience. So he asked Linus's advice, and he asked Snoopy and Woodstock for help. Oftentimes, leaders fail because they feel that they have to micromanage everything, they have to control everything, and they have to do everything on their own. But a true leader knows how to delegate professionally and use the power of the team to get things done. Ultimately, no one is truly successful alone. In case in point, here's an African proverb that states, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Life hack number 6 is that joy and core memories come from simple shared moments and not grand events. What I can promise you is that no one is ever going to remember how well that turkey was cooked, how wonderful it tastes, or how beautifully and perfect the table was set. What they're going to remember are the little things. They're going to remember that time that Uncle Bob got a little too tipsy and, Aunt Rose had to drive him home. They're going to remember the time that the kids were playing under the table and Uncle Ab was so freaked out about it that every second he kept on saying, what are those kids doing over there? What are those kids doing over there? They're going to remember the time that the giblet bag was left in the turkey and wasn't removed before cooking. And ultimately, it's about the little things. It's always about the little things. Some of my fondest memories, I can remember the holidays making cookies with my mom and my aunts. And what a fun time that was. And I can't tell you what cookies we made. I can't tell you how tasty or delicious the cookies were. But what I can tell you is that is a core memory that I look back on very fondly growing up. And here's a quote from Robert Balt that perfectly illustrates this. Quote, enjoy the little things, for one day you may look back and realize they were the big things. Folks, being on this side of midlife, I can tell you for a fact that that statement is very true. Life hack number 7 is that forgiveness heals and strengthens bonds. We can see this in the film when Peppermint Patty realizes the severity that she's hurt Charlie Brown and the huge mistake that she's made. Her quick apology has restored the relationship and has righted all the wrongs. We can see this by the end of the film when they all drive off into the sunset, laughing and having a great time. The key here is that success in leadership often depends on apologizing quickly, forgiving freely, and moving on. And here's a quote by Gandhi. The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. Life hack number 8 is never focus on comparisons or compare yourself to others. We see this in the film when Peppermint Patty compares Charlie Brown's meal to her expectation of what a traditional holiday meal should be. This, of course, leads to Peppermint Patty becoming very disappointed, upset, making statements that she later regrets. The key point here is do not fall into the comparison trap. Never compare your friends, your family, your bank account, your cars. All this does is leads to disappointment and frustration. Instead, focus on gratitude and not competition. By remaining focused on gratitude, we remain focused on what matters, which ultimately leads to abundance. And here's a quote here that illustrates this very well by Teddy Roosevelt that states, comparison is the thief of joy. And this, folks, is very, very true. Well, that's it for tonight, folks. Hope you enjoyed this. I do hope that you check out Charlie Brown Thanksgiving if you've never seen it. I do also hope that you gain some knowledge from this and found maybe a key element that helps ultimately lead you to success. As always, please like, subscribe, and comment. And talking about foods, I do have a new channel that I started called 57 Flavors. I'll put the link in the description box. Please check that out if you're interested in recipes. I make some good food and some kitchen tips. And otherwise, you all have a very safe and happy Thanksgiving. And we'll see you back for the next review.